The history of World War II is filled with countless stories of bravery, sacrifice, and the horrors of conflict. We know about the major battles, the famous generals, and the turning points that shaped our modern world. But hidden within the vast archives of that global war are other stories, tales that are whispered, not taught. These are the accounts that defy explanation, stories that linger on the fringes of history, blurring the line between fact and folklore. Today we're delving into one such account, a chilling mystery from the European theatre that has remained unsolved for decades. It's the story of a place where a group of soldiers walked in, but never walked out. The year is 1943. The war is raging across Europe. Allied forces are pushing deep into enemy territory, navigating unfamiliar landscapes filled with danger. Our story centers on a reconnaissance patrol, a small unit of seasoned soldiers sent ahead to scout a dense, remote forest. Their mission was simple: assess the terrain, check for enemy presence, and report back. It was a routine task they had performed countless times before. But this forest was different. From the moment they stepped under its canopy, an unsettling feeling descended upon the men. The usual sounds of the wild were gone. There were no birds chirping, no squirrels rustling in the undergrowth, not even the whisper of wind through the leaves. The air was heavy, still, and unnervously silent. The only sound was the squelch of their own boots on the damp, mossy ground. The trees stood like ancient, silent giants, their branches so tightly interwoven that they blotted out the sun. The little light that managed to break through cast long, distorted shadows on the forest floor, creating a disorienting, twilight world. The soldiers, men accustomed to the constant threat of combat, reported a different kind of fear. It wasn't the fear of an ambush or a hidden enemy. It was a primal, gut-wrenching feeling of being watched. They felt as if the forest itself was a living entity, aware of their presence and holding its breath in anticipation. Every snap of a twig or rustle of their uniforms felt super loud in the silence. Despite their unease, they were soldiers with a mission. They pushed onward, deeper into the suffocating woods. It wasn't long before they found the first signs that something was terribly wrong. Scattered among the trees, they began to discover abandoned military equipment. A helmet lying half buried in mud. A rucksack, its contents spilled onto the ground. A rifle leaning against a tree trunk, as if its owner had just set it down and planned to return in a moment. But the owner was nowhere to be seen. What was most disturbing was the complete lack of any evidence of a struggle. There were no bodies, no bloodstains, no bullet holes in the trees. It was as if an entire unit of soldiers had simply vanished into thin air, leaving all their gear behind. It didn't make any sense. Soldiers don't abandon their weapons unless they are captured or killed. Yet here was a scene of mass abandonment with no explanation. As they pressed on, the environment grew even stranger. A palpable coldness began to permeate the air. A damp chill that seeped into their bones, despite it being the middle of summer. The men pulled their collars tighter, their breath turning to mist in the unnaturally frigid atmosphere. Then, their communication equipment started to fail. The crackle of the radio, their lifeline to the outside world, began to dissolve into a sea of static. Desperate attempts to make contact were met with garbled, incomprehensible noises before the line went completely dead. They were cut off, alone in a forest that seemed to be actively working against them. They tried to mark their trail, carving symbols into tree trunks and leaving behind makeshift markers. But the forest seemed to mock their efforts. Every direction looked identical, a labyrinth of repeating trees and shifting shadows that made navigation nearly impossible. Hours bled into one another. The patrol was lost, disoriented, and increasingly unnerved. Then, they made a discovery that sent a shiver down every man's spine. In a patch of soft mud, they found a set of footprints. Not just a few, but dozens of them, all pressed deep into the earth. It was clear a large group of people had passed through here. But the most chilling detail was that all the tracks were pointing in the same direction, as if the entire group had been marching in unison towards some unknown destination. The patrol followed the footprints, hoping for answers, but the mystery only deepened. After a few hundred yards, the tracks just ended, abruptly. It wasn't that they faded or scattered, they simply stopped, as if every single person had been lifted straight up from the ground at the exact same moment. There was nothing ahead but undisturbed soil, According to the fragmented reports that eventually made it back to Allied command, some of the soldiers in that final patrol spoke of something else. They described a low, deep vibration that seemed to emanate from the ground beneath their feet. It wasn't a sound they could clearly hear, but a feeling. A resonant thrumming that felt organic, almost like the slow, deep breathing of a colossal, slumbering creature. This was the last piece of information received before contact with the second patrol was also lost. No official explanation was ever provided for the disappearance of these men. Subsequent search and rescue units were dispatched to the area, but they found nothing more than what the first patrol had discovered. The same abandoned equipment, untouched and slowly being reclaimed by the forest. Not a single soldier from either of the lost units was ever found or heard from again. In the aftermath, the area was designated as a high-risk zone on military maps, a silent acknowledgement that something inexplicable had occurred there. But as the war drew to a close and the world moved on, the story was quietly buried. Over time, the official designation was removed from the maps, and the forest of the vanished soldiers was effectively erased from the records. It became just another patch of wilderness in a post-war Europe eager to forget its scars. But a place like that doesn't just disappear. The land remembers. Today, that forest still stands. It remains largely unexplored, a dark and imposing patch of green on the European landscape. Locals and the few hikers who venture near its perimeter tell strange stories. They speak of an unnatural cold that hangs in the air, even on the hottest days. They report hearing disembodied sounds carried on the wind, faint whispers, the distant clank of metal, or that same low humming vibration that seems to come from deep within the earth. And nearly everyone who gets close shares the same unsettling sensation, the distinct and undeniable feeling of being watched by unseen eyes from within the trees. World War II left us with countless battlefields, places scarred by human conflict. But perhaps some places were never battlefields at all. They are something older, something stranger, something that doesn't belong to our history. They are still out there, waiting in the silence. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of history's most unnerving mysteries. If you find these kinds of stories as fascinating as I do, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more explorations into the unknown. What do you think happened to those soldiers? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next one.